I gave myself a challenge today, come up with my 15 favorite Flames. It's not the 15 greatest, it's the 15 favorite. So, as a for instance, I'll give honorable mention to Jim Poplinski, who doesn't make the list. And there'll be other honorable mentions along the way. Joel Otto does not make the list as one of my favorites. And not because of the comment I always make, which is kicking the puck in '89. He just wasn't one of my favorite players. And it is an interesting... It's an interesting perspective, too, when you're talking about a team like I am with Calgary, that I liked them during parts of the 80s, really didn't like them during the late 80s, early 90s. And I've been kind of indifferent towards for the last little while here. I've explained as well that my like or dislike of teams definitely has faded over the last 3 years. When you're watching all 31 teams, it's kind of it just dulls all of that. So yeah. That being said, we're going to get into the top 15, my 15 favorites. And again, these are favorites, not the best. So 15, Joe Mullen. I have no idea how he was available. I don't know why St. Louis traded Joe Mullen. But Joe Mullen was a key player for the Flames, and then they traded him. All Mullen did was score a bunch of points, and he was a pretty good player. Won championships too, as I remember it. And you know, Mullen again, a player that I respected, and I liked when he played for Calgary as well. Number 14. Michael Backlund of the current Calgary Flames. Backlund, as a prospect, was seen as being this top-notch, pretty solid center that he never really quite became. But as an NHLer, he has made himself one of the best two-way forwards in the game. He's had certain seasons where fans in Calgary thought he should get more Selke consideration than he got. And honestly, he's kind of reinvented himself as an NHLer from where he was drafted. Think of it like a Roddick Foxa, just with more offense. If Foxa turns into Backlund offensively, I think things will be okay. But again, for Backlund, he gets marks from me, and a fan in me, not from me, I'm not sending him a fan in me that he did reinvent his game in the NHL, and he's become a pretty darn solid all-around player. Number 13. This one hurts. Mike Vernon. You know, back in '89, I talk about the Joel Otto goal. What really beat the Canucks was Mike Vernon was a wall. He was fantastic. And of all the goaltenders that have won Stanley Cups, Mike Vernon's one of the most underrated goaltenders that I can remember in my lifetime. The guy was a winner, and he was very good. He played for some very good teams, and that's where that side of it comes in, where people will say, well, yeah, he was a good goaltender, but look at the team he was on. Well, yes, but still, it doesn't detract from the fact Vernon was a pretty darn solid goalie. And as a Canuck fan that was heartbroken by Vernon more than once, having him on this countdown at all shows my respect for his game. Number 12. So we have a rule in the NHL regarding rookies. You're not eligible for the Calder Award if you're 26 or over. That's the Sergei Makarov change of the rule. The Makarov change was made because Makarov came over from the Soviet Union just before it became Russia again, and he was great. He was ready, but the NHL looked at that and went, well, he's not really a true rookie. That's not fair. So they changed the rule. But Makarov coming over, honestly, it was great to see him on NHL ice. And he was really solid for Calgary. He would move around a bit as well after that. But really, really solid rookie for Calgary. And I had nothing but respect for him. And yeah, the rule got changed because of him. Number 11 on here. Yeah. All right, number 11. Theoren Fleury. So Theoren Fleury, young, physical. And what set Theoren Fleury apart too was size. He was a small player. Now, he's been very vocal about not being a Vancouver fan, and he's said some things over the years that have been like, hey, Theo, careful. But at the same time, Theoren Fleury has been an inspiration to players for numerous reasons. He's been through a lot. His life story is an inspirational one. So even though he may talk some smack about Vancouver Canucks, and he does, I really can't. I can't hold it against him, and he's at number 11 on this overall. Number 10. Let's see, number 10. And I'll put this one at 10. Joe Nieuwendyk came into the NHL and was a pure goal scorer right out of the gate. And for Calgary, they had a special one, and I think they knew it right out of the gate as well. Nieuwendyk was one of those guys who it felt like feasted on Vancouver when he played against them. And, when you've got Joe Nieuwendyk down the middle, you got Joel Otto down the middle as well. Like, they had a pretty nasty lineup in general. And I mean, like, very talented, and the depth of those Calgary Flames was impressive. Nieuwendyk, of course, would go on and also win a Stanley Cup with Dallas. And he was a winner everywhere he went. And so Nieuwendyk had, again, it was about having my respect. So this is one of those things I've talked about where, people say, well, Shannon wasn't a fan of this team, so clearly his idea of favorites. It's when you're watching a team that you cheer for lose to another team and you go, man, this sucks. But you know what? I'm happy for him. I can respect him. If you're a Toronto fan, think of it like Patrice Bergeron. You hate everybody on Boston, but you still look at Bergeron and go, man, Patrice seems like a really decent guy. I had that feeling with Nieuwendyk even while the Canucks were coming up short against the Calgary Flames. Number 9 on the all-time list here. Number 9. Now, Paul Reinhart, I became a even bigger fan of his in Calgary or in Vancouver after Calgary, but very good player for the Calgary Flames and excellent defenseman. And if not for injuries, he would have gone on for a very long time. And who knows how his career might have turned out. I had nothing but respect for him for playing through pain as he did later in his career. And Reinhart, honestly, of the players who played in Calgary, again, it's a respect thing when you're the opposing fan watching the games, and Reinhart was absolutely excellent. Nothing but respect from this guy. Number 8. Yeah, I'll put this one at 8. Mika Kiprusoff. Mika Kiprusoff was thrown to Calgary because San Jose had too many goaltenders, and then Kipper made them regret it immediately. Kiprusoff was fantastic. Not that Nabokov was a slouch in San Jose, he wasn't, but man, Kiprusoff was absolutely fantastic. And that run to the Stanley Cup Finals in 2004, that was a pretty solid run for him and for the Calgary Flames. And again, it's one of those situations where I really don't have anything bad to say about Kiprusoff. So we got Kiprusoff at 8. Mika. I look at these two and I think, how international are my favorites. And with Calgary, that's a pretty international bunch. Number 7. So we're over halfway through now. Well, people are still like, how can he have Kiprusoff all the way down at 8? It's a favorites list. Number 7. Håkan Lube. Håkan Lube is an example of a player who comes over, plays well in North America, and then goes, oh, I'm good. I'm going to go home. No, I feel good about how things went, and I'm heading home. Yeah, thanks. I'm going home. And he did. And if not for that, who knows how many more goals he would have scored, how many more points he might have, how long he would have lasted. We'll never know. Lube's one of those great unknowns. And, 50 goal season showed what he could do, and he scored a ton of points, and then he was gone. Faster than Kaiser Soze. I don't know how many unusual suspects references I can get into my videos in a week, but I'm trying. Håkan Lube, A pretty strong goal scorer for the Calgary Flames. And again, there's a lot of 80s feel to this list. Number 6. So at 6, from the current Calgary Flames, Johnny Gaudreau. I know Johnny Gaudreau's had a down season. I've seen all the criticisms about Johnny Gaudreau. I kind of shunt those aside. He's still young, and he had an excellent year last year. This year's a down year. I expect a bounce back from him next year. Be very surprised if we don't see a bounce back season from Johnny Gaudreau next year. And in terms of Calgary Flames players, he's exciting. He's fun to watch. I don't have Monahan on the list. Monahan would get an honorable mention. I would not put Monahan ahead of Mullen. Elias Lindholm, same thing. Elias Lindholm, I would not put ahead of Mullen either. But both of them, yes, they're an exciting line when they're together, and it was fun what they did last year. And yes, I think they can do it again. It's a matter of when. And Johnny Gaudreau, fantastic player overall. Number 5. Gary Roberts. Again, I've talked about Gary Roberts a lot lately. It feels like I've kind of been, discussing Gary Roberts. Gary Roberts was mentioned, and he had 5 goals, 5 assists in the series I covered today between Toronto and Ottawa, just as an example. So Gary Roberts is one of those players that, to me, stands out. To me, Gary Roberts is one of those players that stands out as heart and soul and talent. The talent was there. The goal scoring was there. Just the injuries would catch up with him. And I also, and I mentioned this in the Gary Roberts career video, I liked what the Flames did for him where when he was ready to return, but he wanted to minimize his travel, they traded him so that could happen. And they didn't have to. They didn't have to trade him, but they did, so that he could continue his career somewhere else in as much comfort as possible. So Gary Roberts, a guy who is still having a dramatic effect on the NHL, and there are a lot of players right now that have had their careers extended, it would seem, by training with Gary Roberts and learning his secrets. So, important player. Number 4, it's not always about just the goals and the assists. When I did the video on why isn't he in the Hall of Fame, all these people he just wasn't good enough. What are you talking about? There's other reasons to put somebody in the Hall of Fame other than, well, I got to get this amount of points, because there are players in the Hall that didn't just get there because they got all these points and goals and all of that. There are other reasons to get in. Okay, number 4. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, we'll put this one at 4. I know this is going to bother some people. Now, if we were doing best mustache, Lanny McDonald gets number 1. Lanny McDonald had one season in Calgary where his goal scoring was bonkers. 66 goals, I believe it was. Absolutely insane. And then he retires with the Stanley Cup, which was fantastic. After what Lanny went through with Toronto and then playing in Colorado, the fact that he gets to retire with the Stanley Cup in Calgary is fantastic. Nobody was happier for Lanny than I don't want to say than me. I don't know where. Yeah, I don't want to have. Let's see. Okay, let's rewind that. I'll put it this way: nobody was unhappy to see Lanny win it, even if you're an Oilers fan and you're like, I just wasn't the Flames, but I'm glad to see Lanny get a cup. And then you might have to go somewhere and throw up, but you're still like, okay, I'm glad Lanny got one. I'm not happy that Calgary got one, but at least Lanny got one. At least the cup's still in Alberta, and then again you have to go and throw up. So yeah, Lanny McDonald at number 4. Number 3. If a player can get better as he gets older, that's pretty fantastic. And Giordano did that. He was winner of the Norris Trophy last year. He had the fall off this year that was expected. Not that much of a fall off, but he wasn't at that same level he was last year. So Giordano, excellent defenseman all around, and he proves once again that defensemen can get better and often get better as they get older. Nothing but respect for Mark Giordano. And yeah, I mean, right. The day's going to come where he's done on the Calgary blue line, and I don't know who the next top guy is going to be. Is it going to be... Could Anderson end up being that guy? Does Hanifin eventually grow into that role as he was drafted to be? We'll see. Number 2. Yeah. Yeah, I'll put him at 2. And this was tough. So number 2, I can close up the book because I know who number 1 is. Al McInnes, his shot was terrifying. Players genuinely didn't want to stand in the way of Al McInnes shots. In fact, I'm going to say right now, this year I was trying to count how many players got hurt by shots from Patrick Laine, and it was insane. There were guys breaking their feet, their ankles on shots from Patrick Laine. Showing maybe you don't want to get in the way of a Patrick Laine shot. Let the guy with all the pads behind you stop it, because he's probably not going to break his ankle making the save. Al McInnes, though, that shot was terrifying. And he had one of the best slap shots in the history of the game. And there were people that made the mistake during the All-Star skills this year, thinking that Al McInnes hit 100 miles an hour this year. They were showing what he'd hit before. He didn't do that this year. He didn't do that this year. They were showing his numbers from before. But anyways, I digress. Al McInnes and his shot, absolutely legendary. And one of the downfalls of Calgary was when they moved McInnes. That was just why would you ever just find the money? Find the money, keep these guys together, and the money just wasn't there. It was part of what hurt Calgary as we got into the early mid-90s was a falling Canadian dollar, rising salaries. Those two things put together equals Canadian teams selling players off. And the Flames were a team that suffered with that. So Al McInnes goes to number 2 on the list. Number 1. So you want a guy who can score goals? Jarome Iginla. You want a guy who can fight when he drops the gloves? Jarome Iginla. You want a guy who can hit? Jarome Iginla. You want a guy who can make a nice pass too? Jarome Iginla. Really good leader? Yep, that's him. And every time that the Canucks would play against Iginla, I would close my eyes and hope they didn't wake him up. And I'm just saying, I don't mean I literally close my eyes. Jarome Iginla could have like a period and a half of a game where maybe you don't notice him a whole lot. And then he'd take a hit. Or you'd throw a hit on one of his teammates. And you'd see that look in his eyes. Next thing you know, he's got a hat trick. Next thing you know, he's got somebody flat on his backside because he's taken him out after the hit that he saw happen against his own teammate. Jarome Iginla, he kind of had everything you would want in a player if you're putting him together in an NHL video game. It's Jarome Iginla. And he honestly scared me as a Canucks fan. And again, I don't mean like I literally hid under the couch with my eyes closed. I just mean that when you're playing against Calgary, even at times when Calgary wasn't a very good team, you go, okay, we should beat Calgary. Don't let Iginla get on the board. Don't let Iginla get emotionally involved in the game. Let him sleep a little bit. And I'm not saying that in terms of him being passive. Just he's a good player, but he would turn that on, and it was good controlled aggression. It wasn't violent. It wasn't over the top, but he was really, really hard to contain. And so for me, Jarome Iginla was my favorite Flame because I hated seeing the Canucks playing against him. So it's a different perspective than other Flames fans might have. That Jarome Iginla is the best for me. If you're looking for Kent Nilsson for me, I know the talent was there, but the work ethic wasn't. And I can go through my hockey books there and go through hockey annuals where they complained year after year after year about how much better Nilsson's numbers would have been with that work ethic and how frustrated coaches and managers got with that work ethic. So that's why he's not on the list. And Joel Otto would have been on the list. And honestly, it's not the 1989 goal that I always talk about. Game 7, he kicked it in. I know. But there were certain things in his game that would not, for me, put him ahead of Joe Mullen. So that's the thing. Joe Mullen's the cutoff. The other guys are going to be underneath that. It's a pretty solid bunch, though, for Calgary. So let me know your thoughts. Let me know your favorites. This is not meant to be taken as an overly serious list. Keep that in mind. People take these lists kind of seriously. But hey, let me know your thoughts. Like I said, don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And hey, thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. Remember, stay home if you can. Stay as safe as you can as well out there. And keep your hands nice and clean. Hey, thank you guys so much for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.